You ever wondered why characters have rhyming names? Well, most characters do. Let's look at Mickey Mouse, our very old character and a friend. And then there's Minnie Mouse. What about Donald Duck? And then a similar Daffy Duck. Then there's Peter Pan. Can you see that the names are rhyming? Then Bruce Banner. Even Peter Parker. Then, of course, Superman is also Clark Kent. Even villains like Lex Luthor have rhyming names. Now, what's this phenomenon? Why is everybody having rhyming names? I don't understand. Let's see why everybody needs to have rhyming names. There's Horrid Henry. He's a character and that's a book as well. And for adult readers, there's The Great Gatsby. Now, these rhyming names are a part of alliterative names, alliterations. We've previously been discussing literary devices that we use in a story. So, this is another device which we often use in our story. Look at some examples. We've grown up calling them tongue twisters. She sells seashells on the seashore. Betty bought some bitter butter. So all these are tongue twisters, but that was when we were younger. As we grow old, how do we add them to our stories? We're not going to write down tongue twisters in our story, of course. We're going to create alliterations. And the question is, what actually is an alliteration? Now, alliteration is actually the repetition of the consonant sound in the beginning of the words you use. And if you use two words or more than two words which have a similar sound, then it's an alliteration. Now, what is a consonant? You know our vowels. On your right hand, you can count A, E, I, O, U. The alphabets which remain are called consonants. Now, remember, an alliteration with consonant sound has repetition in the beginning of the word. For example, Carrie's cat clawed her couch, creating chaos. Now, usually we don't use a lot of alliterations while writing, but sometimes you use words like that was the most memorable moment of my life. Now, what is happening? There's a flow that is being created. Now, look at the example. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Which sound is being repeated? The first sound. Now, there's something called a vowel alliteration, which I usually don't expect my students to write because it confuses them. What they tend to do is they use the vowel sound in the beginning like the consonant sound. But remember, the vowel sound, for it to be known as an alliteration, will come in the middle of the letter. For example, soon the moon shone. Here the oo sound is in the middle of your word. So, not the beginning. Remember that when the vowel repetition is in the beginning and it's a like you using it like a consonant, it is not going to be called an alliteration. For example, my name is Anusha, so I cannot write amazing Anusha. I can write it, but it's not going to be an alliteration because the vowel sound is coming in the beginning. If the vowel sound comes in the middle, then it's an alliteration. And if the vowel sound comes in the beginning, it becomes an assonance. We're not going to talk about assonance now because it's usually used in poetry. Now, I've been saying one thing throughout my videos, that every story has a heartbeat. What is the heartbeat of your story? Yes, the ups and downs, the flow, the rhythm, the rise, the fall. All these things are part which make your story beat and come to life. Don't let your story flatline. Don't let it die, please. Don't let it be boring. Don't let it be with bland characters and no setting and no literary devices. So, these are the things which we need to understand, that we, in order to have a good flow in the story, you need to have all these things: your characters, your settings, the ups and downs, like we discussed in elements of story writing. Now, wait, the question is, why should we use alliteration? As I just mentioned, that the alliteration causes the flow, the rhythm, it creates a melody. Have you ever heard a song which does not have a good flow in it? They always gel the music with the lyrics. That is what we are doing. Now, if now the question is, how do we add alliteration to our story? Do we write tongue twisters? What do we do? No, you don't write tongue twisters. There has to be an integrated flow of alliterations. When I say integration, what does that mean? Integration means that you have to make it a part of a story in such a way that the literary device doesn't stand out and wave and say, "Hey, I am a literary device." It is in such a smooth flow that you don't even realize that that particular literary device is being used. But oftentimes, when we start writing, we forget to use them. So, there's a neat trick which I like to use, and that is called alliterative names. Now, we discussed earlier that most characters, whether they are protagonists or antagonists, have alliterated names, or books or stories, so you can have an alliterated character for the story you're writing. Now, usually what I tend to do is that come up with one character which is an antagonist and one protagonist, and beforehand I decide what names they're going to have. And the same name can jump through different stories. It's not necessary to come up with a new name every time, because that's not easy. Once you're in an exam setting, or once you're under the pressure of time, what happens is that you forget and you just write a name. But if you've already come up with one name, then you have something up your sleeve, and you can use it in all your stories. So, sit down today, come up with one hero name, one villain name, which can jump throughout your stories. You can even come up with your dog's name. He can be Marvelous Max, or Max McGee, or whatever you please. So, remember, the characters' description and setting will change according to the demand of the story. But there is nothing that says that you need to come up with a new alliterated name. Now, we've talked about this, that the alliteration creates the rhythm, the flow in the story, but it also changes and affects your moods and emotions. It was the most marvelous moment of my life. So you see, you can see the person's emotions running through the sentence. Now, if you are a keen reader and you want to update your alliteration and see how they've been used, Dr. Seuss's books are a very good example of alliterations. Eggs and ham, Sam, I am, and these are good stories, even though they are used at a very basic level for little kids, but still you can go through them, you can find them online also. So, hopefully, we'll talk about other literary devices in the next videos. But remember, create your own alliterative names, and that's going to be a plus point for your stories. That is what's going to make your story different when we realize that you are using character names and you've understood what alliterations truly are.